Let's get into it. Sorry about that. Felt a little disheveled there. Had to get my headphones right. Coach Colin here, Soul Not For Sale podcast. Tulsi Gabbard has a very powerful message in regards to Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris. Very, very powerful message. She's just talking about what's been going on with the people in power and the change that's needed to be seen in the coming election. We hope. Seems almost 100%, but you can never say that in an election. Then after that, I'm going to be playing a couple of clips of someone who's echoing her sentiments exactly. Bill Barr, very interesting. They're on the same page, as well as Tucker Carlson, which I'll be playing for you at the end. Very interesting stuff. Let's get into it. Don't forget about the new channel I got, Coach Colin Media. We got 69 videos. There's a link in the description. Hit that subscribe button. It's great stuff. Other than that, let's get into this Rogan clip.
It's so disheartening that it's not receiving more attention.
Yeah. This is you look at the things that we've talked about. What are they actually focusing on?
Yeah.
And that's where the opportunity, and it is such a dire picture. It's a time where we are surrounded by literally insane people who are making decisions that further their own interests and their desire to either hold on to power or grow their power at the cost of the well-being of the people and at the cost of our fundamental freedoms. And that's where, this election, our using our voice, our defending our freedom of speech by speaking the truth and speaking freely, all of these things, and our engagement with them as Americans, as citizens, it matters more than anything else. Because if we continue to go down this track, we will continue to see our freedoms undermined until we wake up one day, and this will no longer be the America that we know and that we love.
That's a scary thought. And
it is.
Until the last few years, I never would have thought that was the case.
Same.
I would be like, nah, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, because we've gone through, the political power switch from one side to the other and back again, and you figure like, okay, well, I disagree with this person or this issue or whatever, but being grounded in and having the confidence in the Constitution and these fundamental rights and freedoms is kind of like, okay, well, we'll figure out the rest. But all of that for everything that we've talked about, censorship and control and big government overreach and all of the government surveillance, all of these different things point to the very real risk and domestic threat that we face.
Yeah, there's just so many factors that are simultaneously taking place. There's surveillance, there's the invasion, which is kind of an invasion. I mean, you can call
the
it
open borders.
You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it's people coming here that aren't supposed to be here. And I'm for immigration, just for them figuring out who's criminal.
Legal.
Yeah, legal.
And this is the thing. I've got a friend of mine who's about to retire, Special Forces, Green Beret, served over 30 years in uniform. Great American who's dedicated his life to service. He's about to retire. His wife is from a European country, and they want to invite her sister and her sister's family to come to the retirement ceremony. They're residents of Italy. They have been denied a tourist visa to come to America for 2 weeks to attend the Special Forces warrant officer's retirement. How's that? And these are like, hey, they got a family, they got young kids, they got school, they got jobs, and they were denied, saying, well, we don't think that you have, we don't have confidence that you will come back to your life in Italy.
Hilarious.
And yet, again, people are coming through the border every day, being picked up. Border Patrol has become like this Uber drivers for people who are breaking our laws from the moment they step across the border into our country illegally. And okay, so then they go out in the country. Nobody knows where they are, who they are. Are they really going to show up for a court date in 2 years or 3 years? And nothing is really truly being done about this. Yeah.
Some of them 7 years. 7 years between then and the court date. Okay.
It's yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It almost seems like it's all designed to erode our faith and to make this whole thing something that's way easier to control. Because the way our system is set up right now, if you can express the freedom of speech, if you actually can do that, it makes it very difficult to control a narrative.
That's it right there. Yeah. That's it right there. Control and power. And they're terrified of a truly free society where we can have a truly free, open marketplace of ideas. They're terrified of people being able to, and I saw this when I ran for president in 2020. We're seeing it again in different ways in 2024, where they want to control what information you get about certain candidates, what information you're not allowed to see, who is being pushed forward and who is not, and undermining our basic responsibility as citizens, which is to cast an informed vote and engage in our democracy and actually have a government of, by, and for the people. They're terrified of us doing that and making what they believe is the wrong choice. So they're trying to take away our right to do it so they can remain in power. And in their minds, I know many of these people, and they feel justified in what they're doing, that they are the righteous ones, that they are standing up for America and standing up for democracy, so much so that they are willing to destroy our democracy to save it in their minds, which is a dangerous, dangerous mindset that we could see in foreign dictators in different parts of the world and throughout history.
It really is. And it's astonishing how few people are willing to accept that it still takes place today.
Right.
They almost have this thought that those things have been sorted out and that, that was the case in the past. But and even though history is filled with it, and there's actually no instances of it not taking place.
Right.
But now, don't be silly.
Right.
Now we've got it. We've got to leave hands. I had Jan Werner on here from Rolling Stone. Jan Werner.
Yeah.
And he was trying to tell me that the government should regulate the internet. I'm like, government? The same people that lied about weapons of mass destruction, those people?
Exactly.
And like, no, not those ones.
Yeah.
Everybody wants daddy.
Right.
They want daddy to come along. No one is
gosh.
going to save you.
No, exactly.
one's going to save you. And
That's it.
People in Maui know that. They know that now.
Yes.
And no one's going to save you.
Yes.
And we have to be aware of how fucking crooked the system is.
Yes.
And I don't know how we're going to get out of it. I don't. But I'm very happy that people like you, or at least you have the courage to talk about it. And so few people do. And it's a strange time to be alive. It's wonderful in a lot of ways. It's amazing in a lot of ways, but it's like treacherous. There's a lot going on right now that's like, it really makes you wonder. There's so much fucking subterfuge and shenanigans and so much money being funneled around and moved around. It's just like, whew.
I think that's where there is, there is a silver lining in what we have been through through COVID and through everything that's happened since. Is I think more and more people are waking up and at a minimum just questioning what they're being told. Is this actually true? Looking for information and news from other sources than maybe they had been before.
Yeah.
And just what you said, no one's coming to save us. I think that is the message I'm carrying. I'm on the road constantly, and I'm talking to people, whoever will listen at events and on different media platforms. It's what I focused on in my book, For Love of Country. The truth about what is happening in our country, the experiences that I had in the Democratic Party that caused me to leave the party, and understanding that in this situation, and there's a lot to be fixed across both parties and the government, but in my experience and in the situation we are in right now with the Biden-Harris administration, they cannot be allowed to remain in power. We can agree or disagree on different issues, and it's good, and we should have those conversations. But when you look at the unprecedented abuse of power that they are engaging in, undermining the rule of law, politicizing our government entities, targeting Americans who happen to be their political opposition, whether it's Donald Trump or the mom who's protesting at a Board of Education meeting to have a say in what kind of education her child is getting. This is happening across the country. And if we, the American people, don't do something about this and stop them and hold them accountable, what happens in these elections? If they're allowed to remain in power, they will tell us, hey, you gave us a mandate. You said, hey, good job, thumbs up, keep at it. And we'll see everything that's happened just continue to escalate to a point where I have no doubt that our freedoms will be eroded to a point where it'll be virtually impossible to get them back. And where do we go from there? America no longer becomes the land of the free and the home of the brave. It becomes the land of people who are controlled by the government and forced to comply or else. And if you dare to have the courage to speak up and speak the truth, or say, hey, look, guys, the emperor has no clothes on. Boys are boys and girls are girls, and that's just how it is, then you will experience the retaliation or the consequences of that action.
Well said.
Oh, man. Say what you want about Tulsi. She says some really impactful things, and I've made a bunch of videos about Tulsi Gabbard. Not the most favorable videos, especially one that I made early on that was exposing some things with the World Economic Forum, and I went way back into tweets and stuff. But right now it seems that she's saying some pretty impactful things. I think she's learned. I think she, like Tucker, has learned some very valuable lessons. I think when she started, I think she was just taking in everything. I think she was doing what every person of color does when you get into the Democratic Party. You're just taking all the praise and all the gifts, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's all so great. And then, if you're smart enough, hopefully, lucky enough, you wake up to what actually is going on. And seems like she did, but you never know. She could be an agent. I don't know. One guy was in the comment section. He was like, I think it might have been X. It might have been on my channel. And he was just like, I know a shapeshifter when I see one. I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. I'm like, what do you know? What are you seeing? Now I look at her twice when I look at her. I'm like, huh? Did your eye just flutter? Did you blink just now? Illuminati. But yeah, she's saying some impactful stuff, and a lot of people are echoing this. A lot of people are starting to see what's going on right now. And the thing is, I wonder, anybody that's older watching, has there been an abuse of power by an administration like this before? Because you certainly don't hear about it. But again, as we learn more and more about history and media, and certain things get pushed aside, certain things get skewed. I mean, Tucker Carlson talking about, I think it was I'm not sure if it was Nixon or Reagan, when he was just talking about how all that came about and how the collusion happened. And one reporter out of nowhere went from working in the agencies to all of a sudden he's a reporter, and then he gets the biggest story of the century, of the decade at least. And it just seemed like looking back, talking about it from his perspective, seemed like a pretty good setup. So maybe we just don't hear about it anymore. Maybe there was somebody abusing things like this before, but I don't know. Not from what I can see, not in my time. There's been bad presidents. There's been good presidents, but I've never seen anything like this where it's very Orwellian. From the press secretary to the VP to President Biden, it all just seems like, really? Like, you really expect us to believe this? And I think part of it is because X exists the way that it does. Twitter before would silence people and we didn't know about it. We kind of knew if you were suffering from it, if you were shadow banned, all that stuff, you knew. But for the most part, people didn't really know what was going on. Now we're getting this fire hose of information every single time Biden says something wrong off of his teleprompter, let alone actual abuses that are happening, right? So maybe it's just the information, but this just looks so crazy. Like when you look, it looks so Orwellian. You just have this lady who just throws up this word salad all the time. And you're like, how is she in that position? And then she's like, he's the greatest. Oh, there's never been anybody like him. He's so sharp. And you're like, what? And then you see him and he's like, and you're like, what's going on? And then some guy runs for president who was president before, and then all of a sudden all these cases pop up, and they're like, that has nothing to do with us. It's ridiculous to even suggest something like that. And it's like, what's going on? And the economy's bad, but then the press secretary is like, this is the greatest economy I've ever seen in my life. I'm a historical figure. This is history. This is the greatest president in the universe. And you're like, what is happening? And the border's open, and they're like, the border's fine. And you're like, wait, what? What's going on? Gas is too high. Gas went down 4 cents. Okay, let's move on. Move on. This is ridiculous. And it's Trump's fault. If it's not low enough, it's Trump's fault. You're like, what is going on right now? Has it ever been like this before? Is this just the normal? This is how it is? I don't remember Trump blaming Obama all that much. Or Biden, because Biden was part of that administration. I don't remember him blaming all those people all that much. But with them, it's like every single thing, they just push onto him. Every single thing. It doesn't matter what it is. They connect it to Trump somehow. Has it always been like this? I don't remember George Bush Jr. blaming other presidents as much as I see now. Like, I don't know. And let me tell you, when I talk about good presidents and bad presidents, I'm not really talking about him, if you could guess. Let's get into these next clips. This gentleman was in an interview with Caitlin Collins, the woman who interviewed Trump at the town hall when Trump was doing CNN a major favor, given how much their ratings are plummeting. He did them a major favor by doing that. He didn't have to do that. He did not have to do that at all. But he did, and she did not treat him with the respect that she should have treated him with. You know, I may not like Biden, but if I was in front of Biden, I'd be calling him President Biden, and I'd be respectful to him. You know what I mean? I wouldn't make any old joke. I wouldn't do anything like that. I'd be respectful. You got to be respectful. And she was not respectful whatsoever. But she was doing an interview with Bill Barr, and she cannot comprehend that Bill Barr has decided to support Trump. And the reason he's doing it is very much for the same reason that Tulsi brought up as well. So let's get into that.
To pick the person who I think would do the least damage to the country. And I think Trump would do less damage than Biden. And I think all this stuff about a threat to democracy, I think the real threat to democracy is the progressive movement and the Biden administration.
The Biden administration or President Biden himself?
Biden's support for the progressive agenda.
I think a lot of people hear that, and the case that we just talked about that went before the Supreme Court essentially, and say, how can you see that and say that Biden is a greater threat to democracy?
Well, where are we losing our freedoms? How are our freedoms being constrained? They're being constrained by the progressive government. And, democracy, especially, from the Anglosphere democracies, the Five Eyes and so forth, the threat's never been for autocratic government on the right.
But how specifically is Biden threatening democracy?
The threat to freedom and democracy has always been on the left. It's the collectivist, socialist agenda. And that is where we're losing our freedom. Parents are losing the freedom to control their children's education. People can't speak their mind without losing their jobs and things like that. This is worse than the McCarthy era. Where is that coming from? It's not coming from the right.
Those two things that you just...
It's very true. Very, very true. And I'm glad that a lot of people are waking up to see it. Even this gentleman, I did a video about this on my other channel. And what Trump says about this guy after this guy endorses him for president is wild. It is wild. You got to go to that other channel and check it out. It is so hilarious what he decided to say about him. Let me tell you something. It's not nice. You think it'd be nice. You think they're going to be like, oh, bury the hatchet. No. Trump's like, nah, not about that. Not burying the hatchet with you. Not yet. But thank you. That's basically what it was. It was like, F you, but thank you. Oh, man. It was nuts. But even with that happening, and him getting mocked like that by Trump, he still realizes that this progressive, and progressive is just a nice word for woke. It's all it is. It's when you're trying to be politically correct and you're on channels like CNN. But what he's talking about is the woke culture. What he's talking about when you get fired from jobs, he's talking about cancel culture. You know what I mean? And it goes right in line with what he said. And I'm glad he said it, because so many people keep shooing it away when it's mentioned. But these people are socialists. These people are socialists, and on the worst end, the most nefarious end, these people are communists. It's just true. You can just see it. All you have to do is just look into communist regimes and see how they start, and you start seeing this exact scene that's being set up by the current administration. I'm not going to say that they are, but it's very, very similar, right down to the whole Saul Alinsky tactic of accuse your opponent of being guilty of what you're guilty of. And you see constantly they're calling Trump a fascist. They're saying he is one, even though he's never done anything like that. They're saying that he's definitely going to take away democracy. It's definitely going to be the worst thing if he gets in office. And I've said so many times, I see that as threats. When I start hearing that, when I hear that from someone else saying if he gets in office, oh, it's going to be like destruction, I take that as a threat. That means you're planning some kind of destruction. Because from what I could see in the last presidency, this guy was just trying to build things up. Yeah, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to have a perfect presidency. That just wouldn't make any sense. But it seemed like at least he tried. Tucker Carlson said something about leaders, and he talked about how even if you're a dumb leader, I'm not saying Trump is, but he's like, even if you're dumb, you're not that intelligent, but you love the people that you work for as a public official, as a politician, you'll still do a better job than somebody who's intelligent, who doesn't love the people. Because if you love the people, you're going to try and do what's best every step of the way. But if you don't, if you have some kind of disdain for them, which we could argue we are seeing with these people in power currently, then if you don't care about them, you're going to hurt them. You're going to go and you're going to feel no way towards them. You're going to end up hurting them. And it's hard to argue that that's not what we're seeing right now. Here's the last clip of this before I move on to Tucker Carlson, where he just doubles down on what he's going to do.
This country, you're going to vote for someone who is facing 88 criminal counts.
Well, look, the 88 criminal counts, a lot of those are, and I've said...
Even if 10 of them are accurate.
The answer to the question is yes. I'm supporting the Republican ticket.
But can you say that you're voting for Donald Trump? Because you're not saying his name. You just say you're supporting the Republican ticket.
I've said as between Biden and Trump, I will vote for Trump because I believe he will do less damage over the 4 years. I believe I believe we're facing the most dangerous situation we've ever faced in the world. A lot of it invited by Biden's weakness. And to have Biden out there for the next 4 years, given all the threats we face, including handing the keys to the nuclear weapon to Iran, with a vice president like Kamala Harris, endangers the country. That alone should be reason to vote for the Republican ticket. But there are a host of other reasons. Our country is unraveling in many ways. The rule of law is unraveling.
Very true. Very, very true. I know a lot of people might have mixed feelings about this gentleman, or very straight up feelings, but what he's saying is very, very true. Very, very true. The rule of law it's not deteriorating, it's gone in some places, right? And the people who are supposed to enforce it are retiring early because they do not want to be a part of this whole thing. They're afraid of what's going to happen to them. They're just not stepping into the job at all, some of them. Some of them are going to other places. Maybe it's too lawless and they're too restricted in what they can do. And I'm talking about the police force, of course. They'll go to another county. They'll go to another state where at least there's somewhat respect. But even there, they're demonized because it's a nationwide thing. They've been demonized. It's not even nation. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's funny because when you do look out into other places, Canada, United States of America, Ireland, UK, Scotland, when you just keep looking around, everywhere where there's this progressive government, everywhere you see it, there seems to be this restriction of freedom and a little bit of lawlessness and a lot of treating illegal immigrants with more respect and more kindness than the actual citizens of those places. It's all over, you know? It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. What he said about Biden's weakness, I just think, I don't even know if it's weakness, but just $6 billion and you give it to Iran. Like Trump kept bragging and people used to take it as like, oh, xenophobic and look at this guy. He's like, they're broke. He's like, and it's good that they're broke. He's like, if we give them money, they're going to make weapons. He's like, and everybody's just like, oh, how could you say that? That's so mean to say that. And he's like, just leave them broke. It's fine. It's fine. They're good. Just leave them. You give them too much money, they're going to make weapons. And Biden's like, well, I'm a good-hearted person. I'm a good-hearted person here. Give them $6 billion. Let's free up $6 billion. Let them buy ice cream. That's what I say. That's what I would do with $6 billion. How about you, Kamala? The thing about ice cream and $6 billion is that there's a lot of both once you start buying ice cream. And that is how nations work. Ice cream and money. He's like, you see, this is why I love this lady. I need to do a sketch show. I want to do a sketch show and make these into real sketches. I want to see those in reality on the screen. I really want that. And I'll just play every character. You know, just old school Dave Chappelle, put on white face. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll have white guys put on. Actually, no, I won't do that. I won't reveal too much. just in case this happens. Okay. But we got Tucker Carlson. He's also talking about this whole thing. And again, to see all these people and their views aligning about how they feel about this administration currently is a little alarming, but also kind of, what's the word, vindicating, validating. You know, if you're one of those people who feels this whole thing, but you look at the mainstream media and they're saying the exact opposite, you start to hear it more and more from different walks of life. You start to understand that you're not crazy, and that you're not mean, and that you're not racist, and that you're not a bad person for having this same view. You're really not. You shouldn't be made to feel that way. Let's play some Tucker Carlson. Can't believe that this is from a year ago. Look how much Tucker's grown in a year, man. Sometimes you need to get fired to raise up from the fire. Look at this guy.
But if you're looking at the country and thinking, how do we measure the health of the United States? There are pretty obvious ways to do it. The average life expectancy is one, the marriage rate, the effectiveness of the U.S. military, housing costs, the value of the U.S. dollar, the health of the financial markets, the safety of our streets, etc. By every single one of those very basic measures, the Biden administration has failed and done so dramatically. Biden isn't simply incompetent, though obviously he is. Biden is the single most destructive force in the history of the United States. In just a year and a half, Biden and Ron Klain, his strange, shadowy chief of staff, have done more damage to this country than anybody could possibly have imagined. We read the numbers every night, but they don't capture it. You know what captures it? This story. This story comes from the reliably liberal financial news outlet CNBC. Here's the second sentence of the piece. Quote, a rising number of former Californians are migrating out of the country altogether and are instead heading south of the border. Many are seeking a more relaxed and affordable lifestyle in Mexico. Yes, in Mexico, not Switzerland, Mexico. So things are so bad in Joe Biden's America that thousands of Americans are voluntarily moving to a third world country in the middle of a brutal drug war. Yes, there are human heads littering the side of the road in Acapulco, but at least it's not Los Angeles. Darryl Graham works in real estate in Mexico. He says of the people he sells to, quote, at least half are coming down from California. Suddenly the cost of taxes, the crime rates, the politics, all the things that people are unhappy with in California make them want to come down to Mexico. Another analyst who studies the trend at the Migration Policy Institute says so many Americans are relocating to Mexico right now that locals are being priced out of their own neighborhoods. So it's mass migration in reverse. It's pretty amazing. No matter how bad you thought this administration was going to be, you probably could not have imagined ever caravans of Biden refugees fleeing our country across the southern border looking for a better life in Mexico. At this rate, the next stop will be Port-au-Prince. Say what you will about Haiti, it's better than Baltimore. Now, one upside of moving to Latin America is like-minded neighbors. Hispanics despise Joe Biden too. Biden's approval rating among Hispanic voters in this country has fallen to 24%. That's his lowest among any demographic group. Meanwhile, as of tonight, guess who's the preferred candidate for 2024 among self-described Latinos? That's right, the taco bowl guy, Donald J. Trump. Let that sink in for a second. Donald Trump, supposedly the most anti-Hispanic racist this country's ever produced, that man is far more popular among actual Hispanics than a cringing white liberal like Joe Biden. So the guy who tried to build a border wall is loved. The guy who uses the words Latinx, non-ironically, is hated. Remarkable. It's also, and this is not an overstatement, politically a disaster of generational magnitude for the Democratic Party. Latinos dislike Joe Biden intensely, and they dislike him for the same reason that everybody else does. Biden has made things worse, a lot worse. The median income in this country is $44,000 a year. A year! Imagine trying to live on that right now. Do the math. You couldn't do it, not in any recognizably American way. Inflation is too high. It's making you poorer. Well, today in Philadelphia, Joe Biden unveiled his plan to fix inflation. Now watch this tape and keep in mind as you do that it is real. We've not edited it in any way. Here it is.
We can do all this. all I'm asking is for the largest corporations and the wealthiest Americans to begin to pay their fair share in taxes. I'm deadly earnest. Anybody out there think the tax system is fair? Raise your hand.
This guy, the AFL-CIO. How many private sector labor union members support Joe Biden? 12%? 15%? It's not 50%. And yet they host the guy? They're so corrupt. But listen to the message. Higher taxes will make the things that you buy cheaper. That's what Biden just said. Inflation is up because taxes aren't high enough. Now, it's hardly a defense of corporate America, which we would never defend, to point out that that, as an economic analysis, is completely insane. It's just not true. We've lost control of inflation because people like Joe Biden pushed a species of lunacy called modern monetary theory. They printed an endless torrent of fake money to enrich and empower themselves. And by doing that, they crashed the US dollar and made you much poorer. That's what happened. There's not much debate about that. And they're not going to acknowledge it, of course. They can't even be bothered to pretend to care about baby formula shortages.
Wow. You know what I notice, and it's always good. You know, I don't know if you guys know this. Warren Buffett, sometimes he reads for like 6 hours a day. And sometimes what he'll be reading is like a Forbes magazine from like 1950. And it's like, why are you doing that? And it's because certain trends and just certain things reveal themselves as you delve back into the past. But just this video being a year old, right? You start to see like Latino support was dropping for Biden. It dropped very, very low. And now we're seeing, and I shouldn't say now, the whole time, but it's become very, very apparent. It's become, I think it's the number one or number two issue that most Americans are concerned about, the border. We start to see that so many people came through. And everybody, not everybody, well, there's certain people who had the theory of, you know, maybe this is happening so these people can be voters. And then when you really look into it, you know, a lot of people say, oh, no, these people can't vote. But under certain circumstances, with a certain work permit, and certain things can happen, or they can get certain things, I should say, that actually does make them eligible to vote. So it's very interesting, because usually that's who the Democrats will depend on. They'll depend on the Latin, the Hispanic vote, and the black vote. That's who they depend on. Those people just, no matter what, they're voting Democrat because they've been fed the lies of the entire Republican Party being absolutely racist. They hate you, they will often say on the left. But somehow it ended up dropping. And then we see a massive amount of immigrants coming through. It's very interesting to see that. So Tucker Carlson bringing all that up, Joe Biden at that. I just need, listen, this is all we need. We just need to take all the money from the billionaires and the corporations. Break for applause. Say the sentence again. We just need to take all the money from the billionaires and the corporations. We'll just take their money. They'll be poor, you'll be rich. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. Joe Biden, man. He seemed pretty lively. Just a year ago, he seemed pretty lively. I don't know, maybe there's a cocktail that they put together or something. He was yelling, "You guys ready for it? Let's eat the rich. Let's eat the rich. Let's go." Hey, aren't you a millionaire? No, not me. Security, get that person out of here. Not me. Aren't you a millionaire? Anyway, very interesting stuff that a lot of people are starting to, well, not starting to, I mean, this is from a year ago. Tulsi just said this about a week ago, not even. So it's interesting to see how many people are aligning their thoughts and understand that this is actually a very imperative time. I'm not going to tell people to vote one way or another, but, you know, just go based on what you're seeing. And I brought it up in another video. I think it was on the other channel, how the working class, lower class, middle class, the people who work and have to get up and they have to work and they can't just not work, they see it. They feel it right away, because those people have no ability to partake in what's called, and I've used the term before, luxury beliefs. They don't get to have luxury beliefs. When you live on a mountain, you know, or on the top of Beverly Hills, you get to have the belief that no one is illegal, and let everybody in, and just open up the border, and we'll be just fine. You have the right to have that. Bill Maher, when Bill Maher talks about, he's like, the economy's actually doing really, really good, okay? Everyone I know who I talk to, they're doing fine, okay? It's like, bro, you're friends with Gavin Newsom. What are you saying right now? What are you talking about? But he has that ability. No one he knows gets touched by anything that's going on. He knows people who have 8 and 9 figures, probably even knows some billionaires, some multi-billionaires. You know what I mean? So he has that ability to have that thought process. When you're rich and you're just in Beverly Hills, you have the ability to be like, no one's illegal. But when you're a working class person, you're like, oh, no. Some people are. Believe me, I look outside. There's so many. There's a community center I used to have my son go to until I came back from work to keep him out of trouble and away from gangs. That's been taken over. His school, now he has to do remote lessons. He's at home because the school got taken over because they're making sleeping space for illegal immigrants. It's actually really real. You know, right away, working class people can feel it. And I feel like that's what's going on with a lot of what people are feeling. Not to say that Tucker or Tulsi or Bill Barr are working class people. Obviously not. But there's a lot of working class people. That's why you see the hood. That's why you see so many black people going over to Trump. Because they can feel it. There's no luxury beliefs. It's just he was here and things were better. And there weren't thousands of immigrants coming in every single day. Tens of thousands every single day. That just wasn't happening. So now I want him back because I want what's happening right now. I want this to stop. It's a blessing and a curse, you know, and I hope things change. I really do. Yeah. I always talk about my bias with Trump, and, I never hide it. I never act like, hey man, I'm just in the middle. But let me tell you about this Trump guy. Ooh, wow. I'm a Democrat, but look at this Trump guy. I don't do all that. I like Trump. That's what I want to see as president. But when you do look over at the other side, it is hard to be like, these guys are doing what's best for the country. Again, it goes back to that whole, if you love people, you'll do what's right. And if you don't love them, you'll end up hurting them. It's very true. And it seems like that's what we have going on right now. And I don't know that the entire swamp will be fixed if Trump comes in. I don't know. I have no idea. You see the administration that's here now, they were a part of it. They weren't gone during his administration. I think there's certain people, and I think there's hundreds of them, that will never be gone. Unless Trump goes with Vivek's plan of getting rid of 75% of them, which he's probably not going to do because it's a very radical thing to do. I don't know, man. And again, older people, let me know if this has ever happened before. Let me know if it was ever this corrupt, but openly corrupt, not corrupt where you felt like it was. Openly corrupt, like Orwellian corrupt, where you could see it and they're just like, no, you're wrong. And you're racist. And you're racist and you're canceled. Your boss is going to call you in 10 minutes. You're fired, actually, as well. And then the FBI comes at your door. Anyways, guys, just like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps tremendously. You have no idea. And other than that, I'm out.